Welcome to another great edition of Money Truth Moments with our very own money expert, our very own Judy Kobenbarger. How are you this morning?
I am awesome. Good morning to you. How's it going over there?
It's going great. I'm looking forward to today being just a beautiful sunny day. We weathered that crazy storm. I think we only lost like a chair tipped over or something, but we made it, which is
Made it
great.
through the hurricane. That doesn't happen
It's
here very often.
That's true. That's true. So, welcome, folks. If you're just joining us for the first time, please make sure you follow Judy at judykopenbarger.today. All of her links and everything is on her website. We'll talk a little bit more about resources available to you a little bit later on in the show. But we've been on this streak of just amazing things to empower folks in their finances. And today brings up another great topic of setting and achieving intentional financial goals, which is a lot to cover. So I want to make sure that we jump right into it. What do you say we do that?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. So let me start off by asking you, what does it mean to be intentional with your finances? And how is that different from just saving money or budgeting?
Well, yeah, just the word intentional, it's doing things on purpose, doing things with a purpose and for a purpose. And that's all it is. It's just the saving that you do, the investing that you do, the growth of your wealth is all for a reason. And I think a good plan has that intention behind it. So that's it, right? Just do it on purpose instead of just go with the way. It's amazing how many people don't plan, but I'm a planner. So maybe that's, I'm just wired that way. But why would you not think about where you're going before you start walking? It blows my mind. So yeah, for people that just want to get into the habit of planning, it's just purposefully taking direction. That's all.
Excellent. So let me follow up with, why is this so important to set specific financial goals rather than just having just a general desire to save money? And how do those goals motivate and give you direction?
Yeah, well, that's that purposefulness. So if you just are saving money, you're more likely to do a better job if it's for something. Like, I really want to go to see that show. I really want to go take that trip. Well, if you're just kind of saving money, what happens is pardon me, the daily living gets in the way. You're making little choices every day, just little tiny decisions about money. It's like, sure, I'll drive through and get a hamburger. Sure, I'll go to the movie. Sure, I'll whatever. Go on Amazon. And then the boxes start showing up on the porch. It's like if you don't have a purpose, you're not allocating your spending. You're not allocating those dollars for something that is a goal. And so having a specific goal makes all the difference in how successful you'll be at accumulating money or wealth for that purpose.
So it also kind of the opposite of that, and I think what a lot of folks tend to do, right? When you talked about being intentional, but a lot of us, I think, we're kind of intentional, but I think the bigger word here, or the key word here, is a lot of us procrastinate until we think it's too late,
Mhm.
right? So how do you kind of fight that? Being so positive, so intentional. I just talked to Judy. I just saw her show, and then life happens, and it's like, yeah, I'll get around to it. What are some best practices you can share?
Well, just Nike, just do it. That's all. You're either motivated or you're not. And, people say, how do you get motivated? I don't know. You just are. I think when you have a really specific purpose, there's a why. If you start with why, if you know why you're doing something, it's a whole lot easier to be successful. If you're training for some Olympic athletic event, or you're going to run a race, or you're going to climb a mountain, you want to go, like Machu Picchu's on my list, right? It's at high altitude. You can't just go there and expect to get to the top and come out of there vertical. You're going to be horizontal, gasping for air, right? You got to kind of condition yourself. And so it's like, wow, I have a really good reason to get in shape, because I want to go do that hike and be successful and have a great time and not be recovering the whole time. And so it's the same with finances. If you want to, quote, retire in a certain way, you want to have your money do the work for you at some point in life where you don't want to get up and go do it. It's just a matter of, how much do I need, right? It's a specific goal. And you think, well, I could do that at age 50 or 55 or 60 or 65 or 70 or whatever it is. You start early enough, you can make that number a smaller number, right? If you wait till 50 and go, oh, shoot, I should have planned for the next 35 years. It's going to be a little bit tougher to catch up. But if you're specific about your why, you know why you're saving money, why you're investing money, you know what it's for, you're going to have a whole lot higher level of success when you're specific and you start with your why.
Uh, So, folks, again, if you're just joining us, welcome to the show. If you're not following Judy, please do so at judykopenbarger.today. We're discussing setting and achieving intentional financial goals. And if you are just joining us, please make sure you watch the beginning of the show. So we've started off right out of the gate, right? Just talking about intentions, setting goals. So when we're talking about this, how does like the time frame impact the type of goal you set? Like for example, when you're trying to set up your financial goals, you have your term, your medium term, and your long term goals. So how does time affect all that?
Well, obviously, if it's a long-term goal, you have longer for your money to cook. So if you need $100,000 in 10 years, you don't need $10,000 every year, right? You need less than that because your money's going to grow in the meantime for a long-term goal. But if it's a goal for next year and you need $100,000, you better figure out divided by 12 every month. What do I have to do, right? Because there's not a whole lot of time for the money to grow. So that's one factor to consider, like how much you actually need for the purpose that you're saving for or accumulating for. But there's always now, soon, and later. Now, soon, and later. Short term, mid range, and long term goals. So short term is, in the next couple of years, I might work on my car or replace my car, or maybe there's a trip coming up for a special birthday or something. Mid range might be, maybe we're going to make a move. We're going to move to another bigger house or a smaller house. We're going to move to another state. And we're going to do that 3, 4, 5 years from now. That would be like a mid range goal. And long term is going to be anything outside of that. In our 50s, in our 60s, we want to have like a second home. We want to have a villa at the beach or a condo, in the mountains, maybe a cabin or something. And maybe that's out there, 10, 20, 30 years from now, but we're kind of dreaming of that future that we want. Well, that's a long-term goal. And almost always a family or a couple will have short, mid, and long range goals all going at the same time. And if you're a planner, you're going to be thinking that, what do I want my life to be like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? What do I want my kids' lives to be like then? So if you're a planner, you're thinking about that, not just like tomorrow, like next week, how do I get back to the first again when I get another paycheck, right? So planners are just, able to think mid-range and long-term as well as for the now.
So we've talked about before also about what we decided what's really important to us, right? I mean, you've talked about this in previous shows, and want to make sure that folks also understand and also take notes. Um, how can we ensure that financial goals align with not only our values but our priorities in life?
Yeah. And boy, that's the key. That goes right back to the why. So most people will do the thing to get the outcome, right? Instead of with the outcome in mind first. And here's what I mean. So if you start with why and then you go to what and then how, that would be, why do I want to have $100,000 in the bank? My what is I'm going to have a goal of that, down payment on that cabin that we always talked about up in the woods, a family place where we can just go and retreat, on the holidays. And then the how is I'm going to save $300 a month for the next how many years, right? So why, what, how? That's the right way to do it. Most people say, I'm just going to throw money in the bank, throw money in the bank, throw money in the bank for what? Oh, I don't know, maybe something in the future, fun to do. And there's no why. There's no like passion and intent, like we talked about, that intentionality. So if you start with why, then go to what, and then how, that's way better. When people come in the doors of my office, they'll say something like, oh, I want to buy Amazon or Tesla. What do you think of this stock, or whatever? Well, that's the how. So you have to go back to what's it for and why is that important to you, right? And start with the value, start with the purposefulness of it. Then you have success. You might accidentally have success the other way. You might accidentally pick the right stock and sit on it, during the right period of time. So you might get lucky. And usually people that are trying to sell you presentations of, how they're going to beat the market and get 5% a week for you, they're doing the how. They're not really doing the why, other than I want to be rich. Well, what's rich, and what would you do if you were? What's the purpose of that? So always start with why, then what, then how.
I think it's also important to remind folks, and you've covered this quite a bit too, and I'm going to remind folks again that you've said if it's too good to be true, run the other way, right?
Hmm.
And exactly what you're talking about. It's like, hey, I've got this 10% return on this, but you got to act now in that pressure, that extra pressure when we're planning our goals. Sometimes if you're not in the right frame of mind, if you don't have the right team, which you've talked about, right? It's very important to talk to someone rather than just jump on emotion and the stuff that you covered. I mean, I think it's great to remind folks all the time about that too. So we're talking about preparing. We know that life happens, right? So how can we anticipate or plan ahead for unexpected costs or change? And I guess what the bottom line is, it comes down to what obstacles might arise that could derail our financial goals.
Yeah. Life. It just,
Life in a
life
nutshell. Yep.
happens. And every plan is a moving, breathing thing. You've got to be able to course correct and change it up and adjust, if you're rigid with any kind of a plan, it's probably going to fail or just become so cumbersome it's not doable. Um, so things happen, the garbage disposal goes out, or you get a flat tire, or a surprise, crazy stuff happens in life. So, or all of a sudden, this opportunity came up for one of your kids to go to this special camp, or to take, special music lessons or something. It's like, wow, well, that's going to impact your financial plan. It's going to impact your budget, right? So when those things come up for the most wonderful reasons, we're expecting triplets, right? Surprise. We had twins with when our youngest was one, a few years ago, and so that was quite something. So it's like, surprise, you need a whole lot of diapers right now for a couple of years. So those things happen, and so having a plan that allows for that is great. And we saw this a lot with COVID. The small businesses that really thrived, not only survived but made it, pivoted and did that big, the big pivot. They did really well because they either had access to cash or they had cash. So always having cash reserves is a good idea. And for, just a regular household, a small family or even a single person, you want to have 3, 4, 5 months of basic expenses and savings all the time. You can get your hand on it right now. And beyond that, you want to have a bigger pool of cash reserves or liquidity available if something happens like COVID, or maybe you get laid off and you didn't see it coming, or a health issue arises, or you break your leg and you can't do what you normally do. If you're a contractor, you break your leg, you're probably going to be out for a little bit. So preparing for those things, having savings that is appropriate for those bigger surprises that might happen, or a line of credit, good credit score where you can borrow money if you need to in a pinch. There's always, personal loans. You can get family loans, if you've got family with money that can help. But if you walk into a bank or a credit union and say, I need to borrow money to get me through this period of time, they're going to say, okay, what's your credit score and how are you going to pay it back? And if you don't have a really good answer, you're not going to get the cash. And then your options are way limited. And so things like that, we really saw from COVID that lesson: have cash or be able to get your hands on it. But why not just, when you're looking at your monthly spending plan, your budget, I really don't like the B word, it's a spending plan. When you think about your spending plan, why not add yourself to the list of all these people that you pay every month? You pay for housing, and you pay for your cell phone, and you pay for gas, and you pay for groceries. Why not pay you and take some of that payment to you and stash it away so you don't have to go outside and borrow money or limit your options if you need cash? Why not? And I don't know why more people don't do that. You can always live a little bit more frugally if you need to. You don't always need to. But let's say you're out there in the workforce and you get raises occasionally. Every time you get a raise, take half of the raise and save it, and the other half use it for your lifestyle. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? So there's so many little things that you can do. Is just put yourself on the list when you're making payments. Pay yourself as well.
Some of the advice you always give folks, it's almost common sense, but you need to hear it from you, right? It sounds simple enough, but it's the hardest thing sometimes a lot of us struggle with, right? We
Yeah.
talked about, procrastination is a huge one with that too, but you're giving us these nuggets that we can implement on our daily lives that it just will make just a huge change. I mean, the fact what you say, you get a raise, save half, and then spend the other half on your lifestyle, right? You
Yeah.
think it's common sense, but hearing that, it's like, oh yeah, right, that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
let me do that. That's an easy fix, right? I think we have one more question I can squeeze in here in our time, and I'm going to ask you about family, right? So if you're married or you have family, sometimes we're not all in alignment, right? So how do we get into that alignment with others or shared financial goals?
Communication. There needs to be a fluid, open communication about money because it's a fluid thing, right? It's dynamic. It changes all the time, and course corrections and surprises, and different amount of money comes in, different amount of money is needed to go out. So you've got to have good open communication. The families that experience the best harmony, like family and marital harmony that comes around money conversations, are the ones that have more conversations, not less. And I grew up in a household where to this day, I don't really know how the bills got paid. I don't know who did it, who had the checkbook back then. People actually wrote checks. I really don't know if my mom or dad did it. To this day, I do not know because we just didn't have the experience of money and managing money in our household. So I didn't like that. I didn't like learning on the streets. So I educated myself formally, but also started at a young age managing my own money pretty darn well. And I've helped other people do that over the years and making all the mistakes to learn all those lessons early, which I think is great. That's a gift we can give our kids. So with my experience, I thought I'm not going to have that be my children's experience. I'm going to make sure that all five of them have a really good, sound, principled education of how money works, but also they get to practice. So they all had their own money when they were little bitty. And so they got to spend their own money, and we'd go and they'd count out the nickels and the dimes on the cash register. And they got to have the experience of purchasing things and managing their own money early. And that's a gift that you can give your family as well. So I think having that communication, we would even get the utility bills when they were children and show them last month. They show you on the bill last month what you spent on electricity and water, what you spent last year on it, what you spent this year. And if the goal is to spend less money on that stuff so we can have more fun, money for fun stuff, let's turn out the lights a little more often. Let's conserve water a little bit. They learn that at school, but practicing at home is different. And so we talk to them about how much money, we go to work during the day, we come home, and then the money shows up to pay these bills. They got to experience that as young children. So that's a gift that you can give. If you got grandkids, if you got little kids, involve them and have that open communication, not only about the goals you have, but the regular expenses and what it takes to earn money and different ways to do that. So open conversation is just going to make all the difference in the world.
All right, and that's actually a great segment to what's next on our show. With everything we talked about, I can't wait to hear what our challenge is for this week.
Here's the challenge. Find young people in your life. And if you don't have children yet, little kids, people with little kids. If you have your own or grandkids or neighbor kids, or if you're a scout leader, a coach, there are young people to your disposal. Think of who you can help with this stuff. Who can you talk to about money to give them a leg up, to give them a head start? And I would be really transparent as you're going to coach them with this is what it means to save, and this is what a bank account does, and interest and all that. But also share your life experiences, the things that you did that were mistakes. Like, boy, I wish I hadn't done that. That really set me back. I had to reboot and rebuild from that mistake. And here's what I did really well, and share with them stories and encouragement of what they can do more, better, and different. So find young people in your life, identify them, help them with some kind of an education, and just come up with a plan to kind of pay it forward, right? To pass it on. You can do that. That's your challenge.
All right, folks, that is the challenge. If you're just joining us, please watch the beginning of the show. We've discussed setting and achieving intentional financial goals, and we ran out of time. So there is going to be a follow-up part 2 to this next week. So make sure you tune in Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. We have the replays on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Judy, any last parting words?
Make it a great week. Enjoy the sunshine.
All right, folks, until next week, take care. Take care, Judy.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. You too.